All right. Any
And
other?
yes, I'm sorry, I was scooting back to my notes. And the recording will be posted online within 10 days. Attendees may email me during the meeting or use the chat function in the Teams platform for inquiries. Staff will monitor and respond accordingly. If you're calling in and wish to make a public comment, please indicate so by raising your hand, pressing *5 at the appropriate time. I will unmute you and give you control of your mic, and then you have to press *6 to be able to speak. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Denise. We start every ARB meeting once we get through all the other fun stuff by the reading of the statement of purpose and intent of historic overlay districts, and Mr. Zellman has offered to do that. Mr. Zellman.
Yes, historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to ensure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced.
Thank you, Jason. All right. I will remind all participants and folks here for an item. The order by which items will be heard will be based on the agenda as it is approved. Additional items can be added to the agenda at the discretion of the chair and its members. Applicants for initial presentations, both including workshops and action items, should restrict themselves to roughly about 8 minutes. For resubmissions, 3 minutes, please. In addition to that, I think those are all the items I need to cover. And so now we have approval of the agenda. I would take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. This is Michelle Aubrey.
Thank you, Ms. Aubrey. I have a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Zellman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, hearing none, the agenda is approved as submitted. Denise, do you have any introductions or recognitions of guests?
Not that I see.
All right. Thank you so much, Denise. We have no items. Oh, sorry, we go straight to, we have items for consent calendar action items. Consent calendar items, Denise, I believe are all voted on simultaneously, if I remember correctly. I haven't had a consent item in a while. Or are they separate motions?
Well, I included them as separate motions, but if you wanted to collapse them, I did not have experience with the consent items, so.
All right, and Mr. Burns, I felt like you might have something you wanted to say before we got into the consent items.
Yes, if you can consider them as separate items, I would recuse myself from the Chadbourne deck because I'm personal friends with the Chadbournes.
All right, will do. We will take them each separately, items 1 and 2. As consent items, they don't have discussion or presentations, but they do accommodate an opportunity for public comment. So I'd ask if any member of the public had a comment on consent item number 1 to please raise your hand or indicate via the chat. I'm not seeing any. Denise, you can let me know as well.
No, I'm not seeing any either. Thank you.
All right, not hearing any, I would entertain a motion regarding consent item number 1.
I'll read it.
All right, Miss Murray.
I have to page down to it.
Once again, I seem to have managed to open my agenda twice.
Would you like us to see if there's another motion maker available?
Yes.
Would anyone else like to make a motion?
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
Chairman,
Miss
Go
Aubrey.
ahead.
So, okay, I think Michelle was in first.
all right. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve item ARB 22-HOL-23 located at 7601 Elba Road, Alexandria, tax map number 0933130007 in the Holland Hall Historic Overlay District, as submitted and presented to the ARB at the November 10, 2022 meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
All right, do we have a second? Seconded by Mr. Plumby. All those in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Burns, was this the one you were abstaining from? Or no, recusing? Sorry.
Yes, that's why I turned my camera off.
Got you. Understood. All right, the motion passes unanimously with one member recused. Thank you very much. For the applicant, Denise will get with you following the meeting to let you know about the approval. All right, we have another item number 2 on the consent motions is ARB 22 MTA 01 for Cardinal Woods. Is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on this item? Either indicate in the chat or raise your hand. All right, Thomas
Mr.
Ball,
Yeah.
I see you raising his hand.
Yes,
So this-
hello.
He's the applicant.
Sorry, yeah, I'm the applicant. I just wanted to let everyone know that I'm here to answer any questions if there are any.
All right, well, hopefully none, but thank you though. Any other hands being raised? I'm not seeing any, Denise.
No, neither am I.
All right, seeing no comments by any member of the public, I would entertain a motion. All right, Mr. Plumpy.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve item number ARB 22M2A01 located at 6738 Cardinal Woods Court, Lorton, tax map 0994060162 in the Mount Air Historical District, as submitted and presented to the ARB at the November 10th, 2022 meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. Murray. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Mr. Ball, Denise will get with you after the meeting. Thank you very much for coming. All right, that takes us through our items for consent. We have no items for action. We move straight into items for workshop session. Mr. Burns, I believe this is one that you wanted to recuse yourself from as well, correct?
Yes, if this is the workshop item from the Wilcoxons, yes, I will recuse myself.
Don, if there's no objection from any other member, I believe since you are in Detroit and we have quorum and you will not be able to participate in this discussion, you could be excused if you so saw fit. I don't. You're in a conference room or in a conference.
I would be grateful. I'm missing the keynote speech.
Please go.
Okay, peace, everyone. See you next month.
All right, let the record show that Mr. Burns has departed. We are still able to maintain our quorum, and I would say if it depends, Kay, I would also bend to your will as well, since you're calling out on a phone in the parking lot of a hotel. If you're willing to stay for the workshop session, it would be greatly appreciated. But if you are unable to, I think we would also,
Okay.
I think we have quorum otherwise, don't we?
Okay. Okay,
Do I
thank
have
you.
six without pay? Because if
Wait,
pay
wait,
leaves,
yeah, wait, yeah. Let's count because we need to pay the
Clerk.
yeah, the clerk and approve the minutes.
We have, let me
1,
count.
2,
Okay.
3.
We should be good with Joe
6.
and Michelle.
okay, yeah, we're
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
We're good. Okay. Now I'm trying to give some pardon to the members who are literally out calling from phones and rooms. All right. So with that sorted, we shall move on to the workshop session. This is ARB 22 HOL 24 WS. It's 7216 Rebecca Drive edition. This is located at 7216 Rebecca Drive in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. This project proposes a 480 square foot single story addition to the rear of the 1,830 square foot single home resident. Frank Wilcoxon represents the project. Mr. Wilcoxon, I think I see you there in the presenter section. Hopefully we can hear you. Let's test that out. Right now, both of you are muted, so you'll have to unmute.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you.
There we go.
You hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
And great. I saw that my mic hadn't been muted. I've been listening the whole time. And I'm trying to turn my camera on. And you have to apologize. I will apologize for the graphics. I'm in my mobile office calling from Arlington, Virginia.
All right. Well, whatever you did with your mic to change, moving it closer to you, that was better because you were a little
Okay.
washed out for us.
Can you hear it? Is it better now?
Yes, I think so. If there is a package that you would like us to show instead of you, we can definitely do that for you.
Either way, I have the document, the PDF open on my desktop. I'm used to running Teams, but you know what? Let's just have you guys run it and I can talk you through it.
Okay, I can do that.
All right, you can do that there, Denise. All right. All right, Denise is going to pull that up, but feel free to, you can start your presentation unless you need the graphics shown. We can wait.
Sounds great. Sounds great. So, yes, it is a single story addition to a single story residence. There's page 1. We recently had a professional survey, and this has been overlaid on that survey. The Poche area is the proposed addition. And you can see the existing home there outlined as the survey suggests. The dashed line up there represents the new gable roof. It's basically an extruded gable roof to match the other gables we have. The roof slope will match the existing roof slope of the existing house. The pitch of the roof will match the pitch of the residence. Can you guys hear me okay? Just want to make sure
you are fading in and out every once in a while, so it is as though your mic drifts away from you.
Interesting. I'm using AirPods. So let me try just ditching the AirPods and talking right from the computer. So is this any better?
That is significantly better. Yes.
Fantastic. So hooray for technology. Put the AirPods away and just talking to my computer. I know you only have 8 minutes, probably 6 left, but it's the roof materials will match the existing roof. It's gravel and tar. The pitch of the roof will match the existing roof pitch. The gray area is what we're proposing. Had this survey conducted a couple months ago specifically for this project. You can see I have a 15-foot setback offset from the property line. So I think this image here we're looking at is pretty self-explanatory. You could probably go ahead to the next page for time. This is just showing a Google Maps of the actual property. We're on Rebecca Drive, right as Popkins tees into it. I'm sure you guys, some of you may be familiar with the neighborhood, but this is just showing the general location within context. And just for additional context, at the edge of the red circle behind my house it's an adjacent neighborhood that is not part of the historic overlay district. So that borderline is right in my backyard with an existing fence. So you could go ahead and go to the next slide, the next image. That just kind of shows, a Google Earth image of the existing residence. And you can see Rebecca Drive where Popkins tees into it. And again, the neighborhood behind is a adjacent neighborhood that is not Holland Hills and not part of the historic overlay district. Before we go into the kind of the meats of it, are there any questions so far about the location of this property? No?
We're
Okay,
all right at the
fantastic.
moment, and don't stress. I know we had a few minutes lost with technology. Just you're good.
Gotcha. Sounds good. So I know that want to be fair to everyone, get their 8 minutes. Okay, great. So we can go to the next page I put together. This is just showing the floor plan. And the darker poche represents the existing structure, and the lighter gray is 480 square foot single story addition. You can see that there is a 15-foot offset from the property line from adjacent neighbors. And for the record, I've already submitted to our local Holland Hills Design Review Committee, the DRC, and I've gone through all those steps. I've given letters to our neighbors, and we had their meeting about 3 weeks ago, and we did receive preliminary approval with only minor comments, mostly regarding the spacing of the fenestration to try to match the existing structure. But we did receive preliminary approval from Holland Hills DRC with minimal comments. But again, this kind of shows the floor plan, the footprint of the new addition. If you look to the page left, you can see what appears to be some steps that are going up. Currently, there is about 3 feet of elevation change in my backyard, and you can see the little green dots representing soil. We're proposing to have a concrete retaining wall put in there to separate those grades. So that concrete retaining wall would come up about 3.5 feet or 3 feet 8 inches or so, about 8 inches above grade. And those steps were kind of giving a pathway around to there. But again, this is very conceptual, as we all know, and those landscaping features, those steps to get up to the grade, will probably change. So I don't want to focus too much on those steps, but that's kind of what we're thinking to get from the lower elevation of the existing up to the higher, the backyard. And I have some dimensions on here just so you can kind of get a feel for massing and scale and just how it relates to the fabric of the existing lot here. So you could probably go to the next image, next page. This is just showing the north elevation looking south, and it kind of gets into the materiality of the project. And for the skin, we are proposing to use T111 to match the existing T111, which is the predominant skin throughout Holland Hills. There will be a mix and play of concrete as the retaining wall kind of gives a base to some of these elements. You can kind of see the grade off to the far left of the page, looking at the back of the house. And you can also see that our roof, the vocabulary, matches the existing, both in materiality and in slope. The ridge of this gable will be lower than our existing ridge that you see right there, and that's just due to the geometry of this new addition. It's a bit skinnier than the floor plan of what we're looking at, as well as the other additions in the front. We are going to add the fenestration. It's going to match the existing as well. The double doors you're looking at, it's going to match existing double doors that we have, as well as the window. The window that you're seeing right there is new, and that's pretty much exactly a mirror image of the one that's adjacent to it that you can't see, that's shaded out. So if you go to the next image, I can continue this little tour we're on. This would be looking from our backyard. So it would be the west elevation looking east. And it's kind of a section / elevation. You can see the retaining wall that cuts off the bottom of the image, my little graphic for Earth. And then you can see off to the left, was an addition that was put on prior to my purchase of the house. I've purchased this house about 9.5 years ago, and this addition was built before I bought the house. It's a gable master bedroom suite, and it matched the existing roof, both in materiality as well as pitch. So for our addition, you can see that's highlighted. We're trying to have that same vocabulary, the same eaves. Basically, you could trace the eaves all the way around the house, and the gutter line where there is gutter, and the rake boards. Everything would be a continuous line as you work your way around to try to give nice horizontal lines. But we're trying to make it look like it had been there, to stitch in the fabric of the neighborhood with this one piece. Um, Again, T111 for the backside, but it'd be setting up on that retaining wall. So obviously some, waterproofing details will have to be developed for that. The 3 windows, those are going to match what we have on our north elevation, original to the Holland Hills home. I do need to work on the actual spacing of these. The typical windows have a 2x6 that separates them. There's a little bit wider spacing here, but we're working on that. But you can see how the geometry of the roof, the ridge is actually lower than the existing ridge. And that's just because the footprint is, skinnier, just geometry 101. So there you go. And you can kind of get just more of a feel of how we're matching the existing siding and other materials. So you can go ahead and flip to the next image, please. And this one, this new addition that we're creating will create a little exterior courtyard in our backyard. It'll be flanked on 3 sides by structure. So this would be an elevation view from that. It's an exterior courtyard, but it has kind of an interior feel, and it's looking to the north here. So it just shows the 2 new windows, and that's taken verbatim from the vocabulary of our existing house from Holland Hills. The double doors is taken verbatim from some of the double doors we have already, as well as that single door. And again, T111 and the same roof wells. You can also kind of see that retaining wall that I was referring to. It's about a 3-foot grade change, and then the wood framed wall would be setting on top of that to continue the frame of that back wall. You can go ahead and flip to the next page. And thank you for driving, who's ever driving this. I think it's Denise. This is a great image. This is looking at the front of our house. This is very close to it if you were coming down Popkins Lane, getting ready to, there's a stop sign in front of my house looking to either go left or right on Rebecca. So everything you can kind of see here is the existing house. I'm fortunate enough to have some wonderful landscaping that I maintain, and I did my best job to kind of show the hedges here. But the hedge in front is in front of an existing shed, as well as a beautiful sycamore tree, but they all do a pretty good job of screening the new addition from any views from the front of our house and coming down Popkins Lane. To the far left of the page, the graphics don't do it justice, but we have this wonderful hedge separating our immediately adjacent neighbor to the north. So it would shield views from our direct neighbor, as well as any kind of traffic coming down, up and down Rebecca. I'm proud of the way our addition is going to look. I think it's going to look beautiful. But again, it does a great job of really kind of making it very private and kind of hidden in. And you can kind of get a feel for, the existing versus the new. This image does a pretty good job. Okay, we're on page 8. Let's go ahead and look at page 9. I'm watching my clock here too. This is an addition, a view kind of looking from 180 degrees away. This wouldn't really be a vantage point from anybody other than the birds, but it does kind of show you a great view of the new addition, which is up on the top of the page right. How the gable roof would come in lower, the ridge would be lower than the existing ridge. It shows that retaining wall and kind of my version of what the backyard is there, but it really shows the existing view of the house. You can see the chimney, and there's 3 windows behind there. It's a really typical Holland Hills detail where the actual masonry of the chimney is pulled out from the skin, so there's a gap between the windows and the masonry. We're using that same vocabulary of those 3 windows behind the chimney over on the back end of our house. above the retaining wall. And again, it kind of gives you a good feel for just the overall fenestration, how we're really trying to match what's there. We really love Holland Hills. We've been there for a long time, and we really want to make this addition feel like it's been there and it belongs there. You can go ahead and go to the next image. And this is just kind of really focusing in on that new addition. You can see our existing shed is right there. It's kind of in white. I was trying to wanted to make that white to stand out to show it's existing, but anyways, you can see the fenestration as it marches down there. It's really locking in. We're using the existing vocabulary. I think I said that 100 times, but this gives you another good feel for the scale and the massing and how it relates to the existing structure. I think that's all the sheets. I gave you guys 10 sheets. And for the record, these are the same sheets that I gave to Holland Hills DRC and walked them through a similar meeting such as this about 3 weeks ago. So it's the same presentation that I gave a few weeks ago to Holland Hills. And I guess at this point I could open it up to your members and see the comments. I do have one question. Any comments that you will have? I do have pen and paper here to write them down, but are you in the position to email me official comments so that I can incorporate those into the next round and make sure I pick up everything?
Well, so the ARB meetings are recorded. So obviously any of those comments that we make during tonight, you will have for the record.
I would go to your website to download it,
Yes.
as Denise had mentioned. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Christopher.
No problem. And I see Miss Murray has her hand up. So Elise, I will go to you because I assume you might have a question.
Well, yeah. Basically, I like this. I think it's nice and discreet and definitely subordinate to the main house. I don't understand what the little triangular protrusion is.
That is a great question. That triangular protrusion is a conceptual massing for a roof over the floor plan of, if you go back to page 4 of this, you can see the area that it's covering. And exactly, so you can use your mind's eye here, and the gable covers these main 2 rooms, but to the plan left and to the right of the stairs, exactly, that little triangular, that is a lower pitch that's coming out to cover that area of enclosed space. So I am first to admit that roof line needs some work. It would be fantastic if it could be flat, but I'm not sure if it can be or should be. So that's one area that needs to be developed into final approval drawings as well as permit drawings. But for conceptual, that shows what's happening.
It's a interior space.
It is an interior space, conditioned space within the building envelope. Yes.
And it will have no windows.
At this point, we are shooting for no windows.
Okay.
The wall that would be between this room and the stairs at this point is proposed to be cementitious, at least if not concrete alone, to kind of match the materiality of the retaining wall. So this strong kind of horizontal line you see that's the retaining wall would be, about 3 feet tall at some point, and then would come up higher as it turns the corner to be a full height wall on that side where those stairs are shown. I don't think those stairs are going to be there. Now, we may want to add a skylight into that portion, but at this moment in time, there are no proposed windows for that interior space.
Okay, I think I understand. When you come back next time, please include the detail for the original house so we can compare the detail.
Sure. When you say the detail for the original house, what detail are you referring to?
The elevation for the original house. Instead of gray shading it, we need to see what's there.
Oh, there's nothing there right now. The
yes,
darker
there
post
is.
shade.
Your existing house has windows and things.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, so you're saying if I do put windows in that portion?
No. I'm off the triangle. Next time, have your drawings include the details of the existing house instead of just gray shading.
I think what Miss Murray is talking about, if I understand correctly, so on some of the drawings, so on, for example, on page 6, you show the existing residence in gray and actually do show the windows, but then on other ones, I think you don't necessarily show the. I think what Miss Murray is looking for is anytime we're showing the house, just have the existing windows and spaces denoted as well, because there is a section that is going to be wall. Is that wall where the addition is going to connect originally?
So I just want to make sure I understand the first part of that before we go to the wall. If you could scroll down to 1 or 2 more pages where I'm showing like the accent, those show the windows. Is that enough detail, or are you looking for a greater detail of the existing windows?
We need an elevation that shows us the relationship between what is existing and what you're proposing.
Understood.
Not a perspective drawing, an elevation.
Understood.
And when you bring your perspective drawings, maybe you should move the tree or something, because it's really hard to see the relationship of that triangular section and the side of your house.
I will hide all landscaping in the next version. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you so much for those comments.
All right, thank you, Ms. Murray. Ms. Swan, I see your hand up.
Yes. Thank you so much for the presentation. And I have no issue and in support of this proposal. The addition is at the back of the house. I check on the Google map. It is like what you say, the hedge and along the driveway is all there. The only thing, yes, the only thing I have a problem with is the existing shade. However, that is not your project, it's already there. So I have no problem with what you proposed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, any other members with comments? Mr. Plumpy, I see your hand up.
Yes, sir, I was wondering if you could get some details for that concrete retaining wall. Are you planning to face it, paint it, let it raw concrete? Just, I don't know what the character of other homes are surrounding you exactly, but my assumption is it probably wants to be of some masonry veneer. So if you could just put some thought to that, that's all I have.
Sure. My initial thought would be board formed concrete, just because I love the look of that. But to be honest, there's not a lot of board formed concrete in Holland Hills. There is some, masonry clad or some dry stack and other elements. I was just kind of hoping to be a bit cleaner and smoother. And so in my mind's eye, I'm seeing a board formed concrete with some landscaping lights recessed low that shine down to kind of accentuate some things down there. But absolutely, I could definitely investigate that further. I'm also trying to keep budget in mind, and I know that I'm probably stepping out of my bounds anyways for what I'm proposing, but I think that it would probably need to be concrete just to retain 3 feet, because it would need to go down a little bit into the earth below that. But to answer your question is yes, I can certainly investigate cladding and try to look around Holland Hills and try to get some photos and see what other people have done and try to hop on that bandwagon, if you
will. Just show some precedent imagery of what's out there. That'd be great. Sure. Thank you so much.
If I can find a precedence of board formed concrete, I'll use that one first, but it'll definitely be from Holland Hills, and I'll note the address and everything.
Yes. Yep. Show options. I think that'd be the best thing to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
I think, Christopher, I see your lips moving, but I think you're on mute.
Sorry there. I was saying, I think potentially your partner, Elma, has had her hand up.
Yes, she is my wife and partner, and I didn't see her hand up, but sure, let's let.
I just wanted to recognize that she had her hand up, and potentially if she wanted to add anything to Mr. Plumpy's question.
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Oh, okay. Yes, awesome. Yes, to Mr. Plumpy, we thought about that retaining wall and how the face would look like. There is something wonderful about the existing brick of Holland Hills, textures of old houses, that we wanted to retain that as a separate and keep it kind of a historic structure, and not mix our new addition of this retaining wall to look like a historic brick that's on the original building. So we actually are thinking of keeping that face of the concrete as it is, just a form board concrete, and maybe even that triangle addition of the storage space have a full concrete wall instead of a half wood, half concrete, just to have that separation.
Okay, no, that's understandable, but want to make sure that it's not a deterrent to your design. If it is form-based wood form concrete, that is it sandblasted, or what is it going to look like? And or I don't want to make it look like you ran out of money and therefore you just got concrete and you have this wonderful addition on top of it or beside it. So, but take a look. But if you could, for our edification, is what's in your proximity of your home, and English Hills, there could be a wonderful stonework that would be different than what you have right now. Not to, I agree with you. Don't try and copy the brick you have, but I would strongly recommend explore a little bit. I think my issue is if it may look pretty too raw for the house, honestly, because it's going to be bright and clean. And the concrete that's there now, I'm sure in the neighborhood is probably 40, 50 years old, so it looks a little rusticated and so forth. So just that's my observation. And I'm not certain how much we can see from the roadway, that wall, and I cannot remember.
I think it would be zero. It would be absolutely zero. Yeah.
Okay. Well, but zero, then paint zero on it, then it'll be good. Then I can say it's zero. So.
And for the record, we wouldn't be doing like a form liner like you see on the highway where they try to make it look like fake stone. We wouldn't be doing that. It would just be those horizontal lines of the accentuated board formed if we had a good concrete sub to do that. But that's just in our mind's eye right now.
Well, show a present imagery of what you would like to have.
Absolutely. Will do. Will do.
Drawing. Okay. 10-4.
All right. I'm not seeing any other hands up, so
I see a hand. I see a hand.
No, I have mine. I'm not a design professional, but I'm a fan of concrete. So if you can come up with something interesting in concrete that's refined enough for the house, I think that would be wonderful.
Okay. So I'm hearing some members like concrete, some do not, but we'll definitely get some precedent images and try to put them out there and make it harmonize and have something ready to go for the next meeting.
Yeah. Also, for the record, I don't mind concrete as long as it's done in a manner that it's not so unacceptable. But I'm sure, look, there's good and bad concrete. I won't say any more about it. Concrete is good.
Sure. That's why I said refined.
Yep. And again, this wall would be about 3 feet tall and zero visibility from public. So anyways, we will get precedent images and move forward with it.
Yep, and I would also, the reason I was asking anyone else to say hands up, I was going to provide my 10 cents on it as well. One, I would encourage you to look to the guidelines. In particular, I think the big caveat we have on retaining walls is more focused on the fact that they are, not visually overwhelming or obscuring of the landscape. That is the big concern. So obviously, contextual images and information about what else is being used is going to be helpful. The primary thing is obviously that the houses, in Holland Hills are the showcase. They are the thing to be highlighted. So you don't want anytime we're looking at a retaining wall, it should be doing exactly what it's supposed to do, retaining. But in Holland Hills, it shouldn't be drawing too much attention to itself. That said, I'm sure you'll come back with us with something that'll show us that. I would say when you do come back, that is a challenge that many of us have when we look at stuff in Holland Hills. Is there's just it's a very well landscaped, very well manicured neighborhood in the sense that it's always hard to get a visual perspective of a house if we don't live there. So some pictures showing some of these areas would be really helpful for context. just to kind of give us some of that perspective. The Google Earth is always great, but obviously the beautiful tree cover in Holland Hills makes it really hard to kind of get a concept of what we're working with there. But from my perspective, the areas, I agree with Ms. Murray. The current triangle roof, I realize you're constrained by the setback requirement, and that stands out all the more with the current roof design. And the fact that you were talking about on the rest of these, you have this, we're reflecting the gable vocabulary. This just seems a little, as you kind of said, it's unrefined still. I think it needs some work. I am not an architect. I'm an architectural historian. So as an architectural historian, I could tell you, okay, wow, that's definitely not, that's addition. I would be able to identify that very easily as addition. And while I like being able to differentiate, it's a little too, I can see the constraint driving it in my mind. And so if there's a way to make it more subtle while still working within that setback requirement that you're having to deal with, that'd be great.
Let me get a confirmation from you real quick. The 15-foot setback from the property line, that would be for any new structure that hits the ground. But the eave or the overhang of a roof, that is allowed to project into that offset. Is that correct? That's what I gathered.
I want to say I wish I knew the answer off the top of my head. Denise, do you know that answer?
I do not, but I would definitely check with. Oh, is Ryan chiming in?
Yeah. This is Ryan Johnson, your recording secretary, who's also zoning planner during the day. So an eave can encroach into a setback if it's at least 10 feet in height from grade, and it can encroach a maximum of 3 feet into that setback if it's at least 10 feet from grade in height.
Got you.
So you might be in a situation where you're not at, would you be even at that height?
No, not at all. The eave in this view right here, that corner, like if you got rid of the triangle portion, the eave that you're looking at is about plus or minus 4.5 feet above the top of that retaining wall. So even if I tried to like finesse another gable that's perpendicular, which I'm not in favor of, but just for giggles, it would, I'm just.
No, and that's what I thought that as well. I'm like, well, a gable there wouldn't look really, it would look it would also look tacked on. I'm just acknowledging the fact that I think maybe there's a way to do that a little better. I'm interested in whether or not it can be done in a flat roof fashion. That would be, that's probably one of the biggest things because I agree with Ms. Murray and Ms. Wan that I think, in general, I think this is a sensitive addition. It's not overwhelming the original form. As you said, it speaks to the vocabulary of the original Holland Hills house. I actually am a big fan of the fact that vocabulary changes a little bit. So the fact that your window spacing on the rear is slightly different than the original Holland Hills spacing, I'm actually okay with that because that's a slight differentiation, but not so much that it's really only a purist would say, well, that's not exactly like what the original ones were. And
you know what, Chris? I agree with you 100%. I that's the way I did it first, and then the Holland Hills DRC was like, oh, you probably want to put these together. So for the record, I professionally am an architect, and I know that each architect has like 6 different opinions. So when you're in a room of architects, you're going to have varying opinions throughout the hours of the day and days of the week. And it's kind of our job to like not say, okay, you have to say something. So I always take it with a grain of salt because no one's going to say no comment. But yeah, window spacing, all that stuff. So we are where we are.
Absolutely. And what I would say is because this is a rear-facing addition as well, I'm not as concerned about it. If it were an addition, particularly on a front facade, I would even more be emphasizing the fact that there'd be a bit of a delineation so that it is kind of setting the language of the history of the building.
Yeah.
So in this situation, I'm willing to be, I'm okay with it being if there's a desire to match, I'm not as concerned about it with where it is there. Again, I'm really just looking when you come back to us, if it is for another workshop or if it is for an application, that there's a little bit more discussion on how this section of roof is going to work right here. It really does. It just, as a non-architect, it still gives me funny feelings.
Yes, me too. Flashing and waterproofing also, as well as aesthetics. But yeah, in my notes, I have true elevations needed, hide-all landscaping, retaining wall precedent images, and rework that roof structure. so I know that we're winding down a bit here, but if I were to incorporate those to the best of my ability and to the best of my interpretation of this conversation, do you feel that I'd be ready to go in for the final, the official review, or would you feel another one of these workshops is
I got
required?
one more, I guess, question before I give you my thoughts on that.
Okay.
So the other one I had is I was asking about the space you're creating back here. Is that showing? So is that going to be a paved or a some kind of the hashing on that is not grass. So what is that going to be back there around that tree?
So around the tree you're looking at here with the green dots, that's my existing backyard. But if you would go to one image back, I think I might know where you're speaking to, and then I can confirm that and then speak to it. So this area right in here, which would basically be at the finished floor elevation, is that where the cursor is? Is that where you're referring to?
Well, I was going to talk about both of them, but this one I was curious about. You know, you're having to do this retaining. Are you going to have any drainage issues with what you're creating here? I mean, that's another thing that I was curious about. How is this being drained in a way that is it not going to create a lake for yourself?
That's a great question. Sometimes there can be a lake by those windows that are existing down there below that, but we're putting in a full-length French drain along the whole length of the retaining wall. And I do have existing gutters and downspouts that do not go to splash blocks, but rather go to subgrade drainage that goes out towards my street and daylights towards the street. So to try to make this a better environment for everybody, we're putting in a French drain and going to dig up and follow that same path to put underground drains to get closer to the street in my front yard to daylight out there to the culvert.
Okay. And I was actually speaking about the other space on the other side where the tree is, and I was trying to understand if that tree was already surrounded by some type of tiling or something. I was worried about if you're hurting the longevity of that tree. How much?
Oh no, I'm not going to do anything. That I love that tree. That tree is a gorgeous pin oak, and it's amazing. It's huge, and that was one of the concerns. I didn't want to get too close to it, and we also had an arborist come out, and he looked at it and said the tree's doing great. And I showed him what I was going to do, and he said the roots wouldn't be impacted because we're still keeping like 30 feet away from the tree, but we're not going to do any intensive landscaping. At some point, we might put in more trees, but not to impact this. But the green dots are just the existing backyard.
Okay.
And we're fortunate enough to have kind of a relatively level backyard for our kids to play in. It does slope a little bit towards us as we're looking at it. And that's kind of why we're putting in the French drain. But no, we wouldn't be doing any sort of landscaping or additions to impact the tree or the backyard.
All right. Okay. Then you've answered those questions there. So to your other question, so obviously, I think so. Ms. Murray's right. Obviously, when you do come back for a full application, we'll definitely want some of those details that she was getting at. We'll want to make sure we have all the material information. So we want whatever is going to be going for building permit because we want to prove actual drawings in essence. So you want to make sure those things, the material call outs are all there. So that information is all available for us because when we approve it, we want to make sure we're approving the actual submission that will be going in for building permit. Go ahead. Sorry.
On that point, we are getting retaining the services of a structural engineer just to make sure everything is good to go. But I'm assuming that from the ARB perspective, you would not need all of the drawings that would go in for a permit set, rather just kind of the architectural set, but not full on waterproofing details and other flashing details, but just kind of a bit more developed for materiality. Is that correct?
I mean, we're quite content in having all of them, I will say. While we don't have two of our architects are not out today. I mean, we are always happy to have the entire set of plans in case we have questions on them. I was going to say, obviously, any site plan information or things like that, drainage, we always appreciate having all of that in the entire package coming in. Whatever is basically, when it goes in for building permit, we like to see the same thing. So.
Got you. But as far as sequencing, I would get ARB approval and then go in for building permits. But just for logistics, when it's in building permit review, they would always reach back out to the ARB to make sure this went through the proper protocol. And then you would have, I guess, additional chance to look at the permit drawings to make sure they are consistent with what you've
At
seen
that
through
point,
this, correct?
Denise, if we've approved, Denise, unless I'm incorrect, if something, the actual submission, you stamp those to ensure they conform, correct? Is that?
Exactly. Yes, yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Yep. We got the
And we
process.
have no intent of trying to change things around. This is what we want to do. So I'm just in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, we have to get a full set of permit drawings ready to go for the ARB, or excuse me, yeah, the ARB. So that's where my mind is thinking right now. But I guess we will get very, very close to full permit drawings and submit everything to you for the next go around, or whatever we're allowed to.
From my perspective, and so obviously Denise can work with you on the submission requirements on those individual details. But from my perspective, I think if you're able to reconcile that roof question, I don't have any concerns. But and it sounds like several of the other members seem to be very supportive of the approach you're taking is very sensitive and not overwhelming. But I mean, obviously that is your decision. If you start to go through this process and you think maybe you might want to come back for workshop, that's your prerogative. If you want to submit an application and approval, that's your decision as well. I didn't hear anything, just as a general observation that sounded like a deal breaker observation, which we have had in other proposals for Holland Hills, where we've definitely indicated we're just not happy with what we're seeing. So I don't want to give you hey, you're guaranteed to come back and get approval. But what I'd say is if you were able to address and have some responses to those items, you might be in a good position. And I would obviously, if any other members want to provide any observations, please do. Ms. Murray?
Basically, the Architecture Review Board needs to review essentially final plans. So if you're still going to have some loose ends, maybe another workshop would be a good idea.
That summarizes it pretty well.
Yeah. Ms. Murray is a sage of advice.
Yep.
She says it. Don't know why she's not being chairman these days. Come on. Any other members want any final observations? Otherwise, I think looking around, not seeing any of your hands up. I think hopefully we've given you a lot to go away with. I think overall, though, we'll look forward to seeing you one way or another based on the judgment you make.
Fantastic. Thank you all very much for your time. I really appreciate your time and expertise.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. That takes us out of our items for workshop. We have no presentations on the agenda, and so that will take us right into board and staff items. All right. Denise, are you ready for those?
I was going to help Miss Aubrey. Let's see. Michelle, can you unmute yourself? Somehow she's lost functionality with her camera and her mic, and I'm not sure why. So give me just a moment.
Okay.
Well, that's right. We need her back to vote.
We do need her back. What happened in that short time? Wow. Okay, she really does hate Teams. All right, Michelle, you're back in the rodeo. Let's see. Can we hear you?
I just elevated you, and you're now a presenter.
Oh, hello.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh, all right.
All right.
All right, don't touch anything, Michelle. We need you around. Okay, well, with Michelle back, we're maintaining our quorum. First item for discussion, board and staff, is review and action of approval of the previous month's minutes. We have the October 2022 minutes submitted for the meeting run by the gracious Mr. Zellman. Were there any comments to be provided on those minutes by members?
I heard nothing back from members.
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the month's minutes and pay the recording secretary.
Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Now you're the lawyer. You make good motions.
Well, about that. Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we approve the previous month's minutes from October 2022 and pay the recording secretary.
All right, seconded. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Murray. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? and 1 abstention for myself since I wasn't present. So motion passes. Recording secretary paid. Thank you so much. Treasurer's report. As of October 27th, 2022, we have a balance of $24,803.30. Any updates or clarifications on that?
Only that I noticed that the clerk was not paid in October, but did find out, confirmed that he was paid for the September minutes at the approved at the October meeting on November 4th. So I think it was just a quirk of the calendar.
Okay. All right. Any comments on the treasurer's report? All right. Seeing none. Return to in-person meetings. From what it sees right here, you don't have any updates at this moment, Denise.
I don't have any updates, but if you all do go back in December, the conference rooms 9 and 10 will be where we meet at the government center.
Okay. I feel as though I might want to echo Ms. Murray's concern that I feel the switch to teams may have run into some challenges. So hopefully we can sort this out. We have to keep doing this.
Yes, I'm not sure what is happening. Miss Aubrey and I might have a separate side meeting to see if we can figure out what's happening with her teams.
All right. Thank you so much. Any other administrative items?
Only a staff update. I wanted to let everybody know that the staff positions for the Planner 5 position, the branch chief, closed on October 7th, and I believe their interviews are happening soon for that position. And then the Architectural Review Board support position, that Planner 2 position, closed on October 28th. And interviews should be happening probably later, maybe this month, beginning of next month.
Excellent. That's great news. All right. Discussion, updates, and reports. Lorton Workhouse Master Plan, Mr. Plumpy and Ms. Swan. Updates?
Yeah, we have a, well, first of all, the master plan is moving along. We see the updated master plan from, which would be a hybrid design scheme of three previous plans presented approximately 2 months ago. That presentation is November 29th. That's between 7 and 9 p.m. Via Zoom or Team. I think it's via Zoom. And so looking forward to see that. Nothing, I've not heard much. Samantha, have you heard much?
No.
Yeah.
I think they are doing the financial study.
Yeah, correct. So, yeah. But other than that, there was one thing I would like to report. As you know, I'm on the Lorton Workhouse directors, and we have a solar company that is putting up a temporary semi-permanent structure for educational. It'll be a shade structure that is made out of solar panels. So that's, and it's going to be art-like. That'll be towards the front of the facility. So there you go.
Very good.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right. Bylaws update for the August recess, Mr. Zellman.
Yeah, I think I apologize for not being ready. My illness kind of took over, but I think I have language together that I like that we'll be able to present. So I think we're in pretty good shape with it. I just maybe a couple more tweaks, but I think it's in pretty good shape.
All right. Homes Run Acres HOD study. Denise.
Yes, thank you. So as you all know, the Homes Run Acres Civic Association requested that staff conduct a poll to gauge the level of community support for the establishment of the potential HOD. A public meeting was held on October 24th, where staff presented the results of this and of the results of the poll to the community. Thank you. The data indicated almost an equal split in the community, whether to adopt the HOD, but a small majority of the community opposed the establishment by 52%. Therefore, because a majority of the community did not support the proposed HOD on November 1st, the Board of Supervisors rescinded its direction to staff to evaluate the Homes for an Acres neighborhood for an HOD and removed that from our work program. So the study, all the information that we've collected over the past 18 months or so, all the study information will remain with the Department of Planning and Development should the community decide to revisit the issue.
Thank you, Denise. Elise.
I think that we should have sort of not tonight, a post-mortem on what went right and what went wrong on the process for Holland Hills and Homes for an Acres. I felt that there were a lot of expectations in Homes for an Acres that they came in thinking that the county could do a lot more for them than they could. And I think there needs to be a lot more education before communities. Staff has, let me step back. When staff is asked to do something, they have their specific thing that they do. And what you're asked to do needs to be refined somewhat to include more community education before these studies are launched. And if you want to have some sort of meeting with the people who participated, that would be great. I just want to have the last few months with Homes for an Acres were incredibly frustrating, and I just want to have my frustrations vented a little.
I agree, Elise. I think a discussion like that would be really fruitful, particularly when we have a larger cadre of our members are available. And maybe when we have a light agenda, we can try to set one up to do that. And maybe some of the other staff that worked with Denise too. I think that'd be a great time to talk about it, because it was, I think, a lot of county effort and time spent. And you're right, I don't know if expectations met reality there. So let's I'll keep that in mind for agenda planning with Denise, and we'll see if we can try to make something happen in the future.
Yeah, thank you very much for that comment. We're actually, I am actually conducting debriefings with each staff member that participated on the study to do that exact thing, just to talk about what went right, what went wrong, what are the lessons learned, and what we would like to do moving forward in the future if we ever do this again. So Mr. Plumpy has a guest.
Yes, he does.
It's helping us maintain quorum.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll work with Denise on that in the future. Any other items for discussion or updates?
I do have two additional updates that weren't necessarily on the agenda, but I didn't get out a staff report in time, so I'll just go ahead and give them if that's okay.
Sure, go right ahead.
So the Modern Architectural Survey staff met with representatives from the Virginia Department of Historic Resources to discuss the process moving forward. The scope that we have is a little bigger than our budget, so we're having to go back and revisit just to see if there's any tweaking that we can do to bring it down to size. I think, quite honestly, had it gone 2 years ago, we would have been able to get the value out of it, but rising prices have really kind of priced us out. So we're revisiting it, and we're going to shrink the scope just a bit to see if we can meet where the contractors are coming in. So, and then the second thing, if you humor me, the African American Context Study and Architectural Survey, we met again with DHR to discuss the comments. They've revised their draft, turned in a second draft. We had additional comments on that, but that should be moving forward pretty quickly now. We anticipate having a public meeting in the beginning of next year for when the report is released.
Okay. Thanks so much. Correspondence or announcements?
No correspondence this month.
All right. Old business, nominating committee. How'd that go? Do we have a nominating committee? Do we need a nominating committee?
So I believe, right. Okay, Mr. Zellman. So I believe it was Mr. Zellman and Mr. Burns, but I can't be certain because I didn't go back and check. Am I correct?
I know it was me.
I think it was Mr. Burns
And
as
I
well.
remember Mr. Ben volunteered.
Okay, thank you.
This is Ryan Johnson. It was Mr. Burns and Mr. Zellman.
Thank you, Ryan.
So, Mr. Zellman, any updates on the nominating committee? Have you identified a slate of officers for the election?
I think Mr. Burns and I still need to chat about that, so I will reach out to him.
Okay.
And we will reach out to others.
All right. We need to make sure we have that in the lineup for our December meeting. Okay. I have a little piece of old business just to remind everyone. Thank you, I'm sorry I couldn't be at the last meeting and you got the presentation about the rest and comp plan. I hope it was a helpful presentation. The public comment period on the comp plan just closed. I also attended the a informal meeting with these Planning and Zoning Commission members about the comp plan update, which was a rather enlightening meeting. One, because several members of the Planning Commission asked me about what are we doing to identify buildings in Reston that need to be protected? And what are we doing to identify buildings in the county that are not in HODs to be protected? Even someone suggested we make an HOD out of Association Drive. So there was a lot of interest on the Planning Commission about survey efforts and how we can enforce that more. So they really appreciated our involvement. And obviously, what I would only say, I'm going to throw one more line out there and I'm going to keep it short. If you have any comments or you think the ARB should comment on the document itself, we can still provide comments to the Planning Commission as they take it up. I think they're taking it up in January because their agenda was pretty packed already. But if we think about something we want to say as a board, I'm contemplating a letter, obviously, from the board's behalf. But if you think of something that should be said, please let me know. And Joe, you have your hand up, and I think Elise, I don't know if that was your hand from before.
Yeah.
No, this is a new hand.
Okay.
This is a new hand. I was going to say, well, go ahead, Elise. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. You can
Sure.
call on
I was going to
first.
say, it's very interesting. They have interest in individual buildings, so it'd be prudent for the ARB to, besides zones, our districts we have is perhaps there's maybe a category that is historical buildings that are not in districts that we have purvey over, which to me makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of buildings that are not in these districts that should be looked at with our review. If there's construction around them, surrounding properties or something, or at least the building itself.
Well, what I will say is I tried to add to the plan language that we encourage owners of heritage resources to come to the ARB to seek our input in a way to help them, and staff did not like that language. I don't know if it's surviving to this day. I don't think it did, but they did not like me, even though it was an opportunity to just come talk to us. It encouraged that conversation, instead of us showing up at their door when the wrecking balls were there. But yeah. Elise, any thoughts from you?
I have three little bits, and it flows on from there. One of the owners of a historic property, the Fairfax County Public Schools, has determined that they're going to demolish the historic Dunloring Schoolhouse, which is on the Fairfax County Inventory of Historic Sites. I think it's inevitable because of the way that this building is sited very close to the main road and close to one side lot. And I think that really, in terms of traffic flow and dropping off children and things, I think that probably the decision they made is probably the right one for a public school, much as I hate to see it go. And at least a school will be the use. My next was something I saw in the newspaper. The Langley Ordinary sold in October for $6 million.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Interesting. I did not see that. Okay. Yeah.
1001 Chain Bridge or something like that. It was in the patch that it was the most expensive home sold in Fairfax County that last month.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
the last thing I had is that a brewery called Bunnyman Brewing is looking at occupying a portion of the workhouse space.
That sounds like amazing news.
Yeah.
Yes. And if you don't know Bunnyman, try the Virginia Room.
Yeah. What they're doing there, they're actually converting one of those two houses along 123 with a plaza in between that people can take beer out there and so forth. So one of them is a lease to the Bunnyman Brewery, and also they're looking for a food vendor. So that could be like the food and beverage finally at the Lorton Workhouse, which is desperately needed there to get people there.
When are we hosting our first meeting there?
It'll be, well, it's going to be, the brewery will be available, I think, in June of next year. So maybe perhaps September, Oktoberfest after our August recess.
I like it.
Thank you.
That one caught my eye for the Bunny Man aspect. And if you're not familiar with Bunny Man, seriously, the Virginia Room has a very good section, a bit of research on the subject.
I haven't been in the Virginia Room forever.
It's online.
I know, but I'm just thinking about I haven't been there in forever.
No, well, actually, nor have I.
All right, I have one other bit of business. It's short. In a benefit of the Reston Task Force, I was put into contact with the Reston Association Design Review Board and their staff, and I was introduced to them, and we have been talking about Lake Anne and some of the issues we've been having with Lake Anne, and there was a discussion about potentially setting up a meet and greet meeting with me and potentially Denise to meet with particularly some of the new Design Review Board members of the Reston Association Board, so that there's a mutual understanding of what our board does and what their board does, because there was clearly some miscommunications about, if we're okay with something and when we may or may not have ever been okay with something. So I think it's a great opportunity. We're going to talk about it. I think it's going to be in January. It's likely when it's going to happen because of the holidays and everything. But, if I'm your chairman, I'll be happy to go do it. If I'm not, I'll be happy to go as a Restonian to go be our rep to go do it, to meet with them. But I met with the gentleman, Cameron, who's their staff member, and he equally wants to improve how Lake Anne is working through the design process so that we're not running into these, well, this was built and it got past us because it was a mechanical permit or something else. So, nothing really new to report there, other than I think in the same front with Joe at the workhouse, I'm laying inroads with Lake Anne folks. And so we're trying to get our feelers out there everywhere we can. All right. Denise, is there any other business?
Not that I see on the agenda.
Otherwise, I think other than Jason's last meeting, I think we'll be breaking a record, right? I would also like to thank all of you who showed up today and were able to help us make quorum. I apologize that I had to harangue you all about it, but I didn't want, particularly because we had some things for consent, the last thing I would want is a supervisor contacting me and Denise asking why we couldn't get some of these done. And so I appreciate all of you for being able to, make the duty. Particularly Joe, who's got an ARB tattoo, apparently.
Thank you.
All right. With that in mind, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to provide a motion to adjourn.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
Have a good night. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving. Good night.